go. All right, I guess, and we are live. So warm welcome from our side today for our 17th meetup, the Workplace Ninja User Group Germany. And we are super happy to have our two wonderful speakers. One is Oktay and one is Florian, who both have really great topics they will present, but we'll keep it here for now, and they will say a couple of words by themselves in a couple of seconds. Before we start, most important for today, stay here till the end because we have some very special things today. We will do a raffle as announced on LinkedIn and via email for one ticket for the Workplace Ninja Summit in Switzerland this year, a full event pass for you. So if you want to participate, make sure to drop your name in the chat so we know that you want to participate in the raffle. And we are happy to start and kick off the meetup for today. Oktay, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, good evening all. Let me just start by sharing the screen first. So, again, welcome all. My name is Oktay Sari. I work as a freelance modern workplace consultant for various customers around the Netherlands as well as international. I guess I'm a tech guy, but I also love to have a barbecue. I like to drink beers or whiskeys, a couple of bourbons maybe. Love to spend time with my family if I don't do things like horseback riding or speaking at events. And today we're going to talk about macOS security best practices from the field and how you can really harden the security of your Mac devices using Microsoft Intune. But before we continue, I really want to do a shout out to Uwe Koch because he said something like macOS secure by default. So if you have questions, keep them and then bombard the hell out of Uwe with all your questions, because I'm pretty sure he'd love to answer all of your questions. So Uwe, the challenge is on. Okay. The basics. If we look at the basics, and what I mean with basics is the basic configuration you actually need to have a good posture to start with. When I work with customers, I generally see they have compliance policies enabled in their environment, and they will also have some device restriction and features. If they're okay, they also have the OS updates and software update policies in place. And obviously, they should have a Defender for Endpoint configuration or any other antivirus protection software available on the Mac devices. Because by default, yeah, Mac is pretty secure, but obviously you do need to add an extra layer of protection to be compliant these days. So let's have a look at the basic configurations. Sorry, I meant the must-haves. So the basic configurations we're going to skip, but I think it's interesting to know what the must-haves are. And during the couple of slides that are going to follow, we want to focus on user accounts and access control and disabling some of the sharing options, as well as having a look at saving and sharing password options and cloud and storage configurations that really need to be in place to make sure that your Mac devices and security posture is at a good level. And I'm also seeing Urs in the chat, so I guess he'll be good to answer some of the questions like we said. So user accounts and access. Generally, when I start off with customers, I tend to do a benchmark, and some of the times I'll use like a sys benchmark to see what kind of level of protection they have in place and what kind of configuration they have. And some of the benchmark requirements are, for example, to disable the password hints on the logon screen. That's one, the obvious one, right? Because if you do enable password hints on the logon screen, a bad actor might use that information to get access to the device. So another recommendation is to enable always show username and password windows. What that means is that the user will need to fill in the username and password each and every time they sign on to the device. But if you enable this, then some of the platform SSO configuration settings will not work. And in this case, if you enable always show username and password window, the create user at next logon feature will not work if you're working with platform SSO and have that setting enabled. So keep in mind to not go blindly on all those recommendations, but to really understand what the policies do and what the settings have for impact. For sure, you want to disable the guest account and remove the guest account home folder for added security, and enable file name extensions. So by default, macOS devices don't show file name extensions when you're working. And when you enable these file name extensions, it will help users to be aware of what kind of files they're actually working with. So it will show it's a doc file or a PDF file instead of just the file name. So this one's more of the user awareness kind of thing, but it's not a security feature actually. Okay, so when we look at sharing options, there's a lot of things you can disable or have enabled on Mac devices. Some of these are obvious, like printer sharing, Bluetooth, internet sharing. These settings should be disabled in a enterprise environment on Mac devices, because there's no reason for a user to share their internet connection or share their printers on their enterprise devices, right? Because you're going to deploy it anyway using Microsoft Intune. One thing that might have a negative impact is screen sharing. Be careful when you enable or disable screen sharing, because if you disable it, it might have a bit of a negative impact if you need features that require screen sharing. And then, when it comes to disabling sharing and saving password options, another recommendation would be to disable all password autofill options. But again, if you do so, this will break platform SSO in combination with Secure Enclave. Because when you configure Secure Enclave platform SSO, one of the steps the user needs to walk through is open the settings and then go to the company portal app and actually enable autofill. So if you disable it, platform SSO configured with Secure Enclave will not work. So be aware of that. And then go ahead and disable all password proximity requests and password sharing options, because again, these are not required in an enterprise environment. Okay, and if you want to drive everyone nuts, obviously you should disable all iCloud services and sync options. It's not a joke. You should actually, but I do have a couple of customers who require some of the iCloud services. So when you go selectively disable some of the iCloud services, at least make sure that users cannot synchronize documents and desktop to their iCloud accounts if they're using personal iCloud accounts, I have to say. If you want to sync documents and desktops, the best way to go is, of course, use Microsoft OneDrive to do synchronization for you. So some of the advanced security configurations. If we have time spared left over, I'm going to do a demo as well in the end, but let's see what we can show. I use a lot of macOS scripts. These are shell scripts. It's different than PowerShell if you're familiar with Windows devices, but you can kind of do the same thing with shell scripts on macOS devices, right? And I use them for those settings that are not available in the settings catalog or cannot be configured using maybe a custom profile, for example. If it's not there, you can use shell scripts to do the work for you. And you can schedule them to run once in a while, depending on your needs. And then I think this is a forgotten gem, custom attributes. I don't know why, but a lot of customers leave this out. They don't configure it, they don't use it. But it can give you a lot of information if you configure custom attributes to work for you. What I use it for is report back on the configurations I've set. For example, I want to know each and every app that uses location services. I can use custom attributes to do that for me. It will monitor the device and it will report back in this screen what kind of applications are, for example, using location services. It's not the same as proactive remediations on Windows, but maybe you could do the same by combining custom attributes and shell scripts in Intune. But you can also, for example, push all the information you have in this screen for the custom attributes to a log analytics workspace and do your magic on the data there, because obviously in log analytics you can do a lot more than you can do in these sort of limited interfaces. Oh. And then, like I said, if you are going to configure settings before scripting and doing other custom things, just check if the setting you are after is available in settings catalog or not. Or better yet, the way forward would actually be to use DDM, or declarative device management. So, for example, the passcode setting you see here in this screen, you can configure passcode settings, I don't know, using scripts. You could do it via custom profile. You can do it via settings catalogs, but you can also do it using DDM, or declarative device management configuration settings. And if it's available under DDM, go do it there and set the configuration there, because that will be the way forward. If new settings come up, it will show up here first. So don't forget about DDM. Check if it's there. If it's there, configure it. Otherwise, fall back to settings catalogs. And if you can't do it using the settings catalogs, you can always go back to custom profiles or scripts at the end. Now let's have a look at the toolbox I use when hardening Mac devices in Intune. For sure, you can go ahead and get yourself a subscription for the Sys Assessor or the Syscad Pro tools. The Sys benchmarks are a very good starting point, but it costs a lot of money. And if you're just starting out, it might be way too much for you. Sys does provide you with a PDF file, so you can have a look at the PDF file. It also has all the configuration you need in the PDF file, but the assessor, for example, gives you the option to actually do an assessment on the devices and see what kind of state you are in. That being said, there are other options, of course. You can use the macOS Security Compliance Project. This one's totally free. I guess it might give you a headache if you just start out, because it has a learning curve. But you should definitely check out macOS Security Compliance, because it has a lot of features. It can help document, it can help create scripts, it can help create configuration profiles. So go ahead and have a look at this one too. It's also mentioned on the Apple platform certifications, so it's a trusty resource. If you want to go easy, you can always go for the Jamf compliance editor. So the GEMF compliance editor is basically a UI shell, which also uses the macOS security compliance in the back end, but it helps you like start off really easy because you can select a benchmark and then select the settings you want to have. And even if you want to go ahead and do like a benchmark and audit on one of the devices, you can go ahead and do that too. So in this example, it shows I passed for 30-ish kind of percentage, filled on 64 settings, and only passed 27. So this information is very useful. It will help me to further harden the devices and make sure that I'm up to speed with my Mac device in security posture. So I'm going to show the compliance auditor a little later on as well. And then what I also did, I like to, I guess, do it my own way. I created sort of a macOS security baselines GitHub repository. You can go ahead and check it out. It has the level 1 and level 2 configurations available. I think what sets this apart from others, or maybe the sys benchmarks, is that it's based on like real field experience. What I did is I tried to document every setting. I documented the actual sys recommendation and the current setting the profiles have, and why it's different than the recommendation. And again, in this example, we're using allow password autofill. The recommendation might be to set this to false, but I've actually set it to true because I'm using platform SSO with secure enclave configured. Not sure if there's any questions, but if there is, just let me know. One of the tools I definitely have to mention is Appleseed for IT. I guess a lot of people working or starting off with Mac devices forget about it, but it is a very useful resource. You can sign in with your Apple account and download a lot of tools. You can download beta versions of a couple of OS, like macOS 26 beta is available now. But also, if you're working with iOS devices, you can download the beta versions for iOS and play around with it. A useful tool available here is the Mac evaluation utility. So if you're starting out in an enterprise environment, you might want to use the Mac evaluation utility to check if everything is in order to go ahead with supporting Mac devices. It will also check like if some of the crucial endpoints are available from behind your network, so from behind your firewalls, if you will. And then sometimes if you're starting with custom profiles in Intune, and I'll show you an example a little later on, it might get overwhelming. One of the tools I use is iMazing Profile Editor. There is a free version available, but it also has a paid version, so you should check the licensing requirements, but you can always start with the free version and play around with it. It will help you with creating a custom profile, a plist or a mobile config file, which you can then deploy using Microsoft Intune. So why is this interesting? You can use iMazing Profile Editor to configure a lot of settings at once or be really specific about it. And again, I'll show it in a demo a little later on. So let's have a look at some of the lessons learned from the field. And common mistakes, of course. So what I generally see is that companies have a gatekeeper enabled. But what they forget to do is to also configure restrictions that do not allow users to override the settings you've set. So, what this means is that if you enable Gatekeeper and you think everything is okay and you're good to go, then you're wrong, because Gatekeeper checks, for example, an application. You download an application from the internet and it might not be signed. So, Gatekeeper will check that and it will block the application from running. But the user can go to the settings and then overrule the gatekeeper block feature and then still be able to install the unsigned application. So if you enable gatekeeper, always make sure to also configure restrictions so that users cannot override your settings. Platform SSO and password sync. I guess that's a no-go these days. You should go for Secure Enclave because it's a lot safer to use Secure Enclave. It's kind of the same principle we have with Windows Hello for Business. Windows uses the TPM, Mac uses or Apple uses the Secure Enclave. So yes, you do have a local password which is not in sync with Entra, but you configure your fingerprint and that will use Secure Enclave to do SSO for you to all the applications. There's one thing though, if you restart your Mac device the first time before you can actually sign in with your fingerprint, you have to sign in with the local account and password that's configured. Other than that, you can use your fingerprint to do pretty much everything you want, whereas a password needed. And another thing I want to point out is compliance policy settings to enforce password settings. I think this is also a very good example of a feature not to use. Just use the declarative device management settings if you want to configure password settings. So compliance policies, they have a hidden setting. It's called force reset at next logon, I believe it's called. And what that means is that when you change a setting in your compliance policy, even though you don't change anything with the password settings, the users will need to change their password at next logon. If you use declarative device management, you can actually disable that hidden setting so that whenever you change a setting in your password policy, users will not have to change their password as long as they are compliant with the settings. Obviously, if you change the complexity or if you change the characters from 10 to 15 and it doesn't match, users will have to change it. But other than that, they're good to go. Oh, hold on. The other way around. One other thing, enrollment profiles. Make sure that you have configured await final configuration. And what this basically means is that the device will download all the configuration and applications you've configured for the device during enrollment, so that users can start off with pretty much a completely configured device. So there's one question coming in. Does the user has to change the password also when I'm switching to DDM now? Stefan, that's a very good question. I do not know from top of my mind because I'm just in the procedure of testing a migration from the previous settings in a compliance policy to DDM to see if there is a impact on the users. I'm guessing it's not, but you should make sure to test. And the way to do this is go ahead and use the groups you've configured, but exclude the user you want to test with, and then include the user in the DDM profile to see if it has an impact on that test user or not. Yeah, one last thing. This reads a little bit strange. We tend to finish a little bit soon. Yeah, you should take time if you're doing things like really quickly and you want to. One of the things we kind of have mutual, I guess, is that we're eager to configure things, and we sometimes configure things without thinking about too much, and then you can get into a lot of trouble. But a little bit more on that later. So the login configuration, the do not show username config. We've talked about this one. If you are still going ahead and you don't use Platform SSO, I don't know why you wouldn't want to use Platform SSO, but let's say you don't use Platform SSO and you also want to be compliant with this setting. So the user will have to fill in the username and password each and every time they sign in. This is what they will see. But you should really communicate this with your users, because I did a test at one of the customers with a pilot group, and what we found is that most of the users don't know what their actual local account name is. So if that's the case for your users, then your support engineers are going to have a lot of work managing the phone calls that are coming in. And then it was mentioned previously, but you should really know what the impact of policies are when you're implementing like benchmarks. It shouldn't matter if it's sys or nist, but in this example, we're talking about the ensure wake for network access is disabled. There's a couple of settings you can disable here, and yes, it's a good setting to have in place. Like the rationale is also very explanatory, right? Disabling this feature mitigates the risk of an attacker remotely waking the system and gaining access. Okay, if you read this, you should think, okay, let's go ahead and then do this. But there's an impact, because if you have programs like Apple Remote Administrator, or you have other features that need wake on LUN features, then this is not going to work. It will also show an error message to the users, and the Find My won't work when the computer is in sleep. Apple has a very secure sleep feature, actually. So if you are relying on one of those features, then this setting is a good example of what not to configure. Okay, this one's on me, how I Fort Knox myself. I could pretty much end with a short story how this started off, but I was testing a tool for my friend Somesh, and he just developed a tool. You can install it on your mobile device and then configure and reboot and wipe your Apple devices using your mobile device. Right? It's a pretty neat tool, actually. And one day he called me and he said, Oktay, could you test the reboot feature? So I did. And I opened the application and selected one of the Mac devices and clicked on reboot. And I said, oh, Smash, it's working pretty good. The device rebooted. And now I'm on the logon screen and I try to sign in with my username and password, but it doesn't accept my password anymore. But I'm pretty sure that I'm using the correct username and I'm using the correct password. But it keeps looping around the logon screen. Every time I sign in with the username and password, the screen just blinks a couple of times and it shows me the logon screen again. So I had a couple of other Mac devices laying around, so I rebooted them and did the same test. And in the end, I found myself with 3 Mac devices looping in the logon screen, and I cannot sign in anymore. So I'm like, okay, so Mesh, I think your tool might broke something. I don't know. The last thing I did was use your tool, right, to do the reboot. But he was freaking out on the other end of the phone. But what I didn't realize was that one of the configurations I've did earlier was about a security setting, which kind of edits one of these files where you can set some flags to do auditing for you. But the script I wrote uh, didn't do a very good job to start with. It should have made a backup of this file to start with, and then do the edit and reset the settings, etc. But I just overwrote the file, and in the end ended up locking myself out of all my Mac devices. I couldn't sign in. It's my own test tenant, so I don't worry about deploying it to a customer like that. But this is a pretty good example of a setting I did. I deployed it to my devices. I also wrote a blog about this one if you're interested in how this actually worked out and how I solved it. um, but it shows how important it is, I guess, to like really test the scripts you're working with, especially if you're not familiar with Mac system. I'm pretty confident, but I wasn't aware that this file, if you mess this one file up, it's gonna give you a lot of headaches. So, and I didn't realize that when I started. So um, that was my lesson learned, I guess. Any questions for now? Okay, so I'm going to stop screen sharing and gonna show the Jamf compliance editor for a minute. There it is. This is the Jamf compliance editor, and I'm going to create a new project, and we're going to use the macOS compliance project, and we're going to go for Sequoia. Obviously, it's not showing on your screen, but there should be like a Dropbox coming out, but I selected Sequoia. It's not showing everything, so I think I need to reshare my full screen to make this work. Hold on.
It showed maybe a short sign in the chat if it showed for you also, because I saw the pop-up where it said Sequoia. So
Oh, you did? Okay.
yes.
Okay, hold on. Entire screen. Where's my screen? So let's share the screen again. Hope it's still readable. So we're going to create a new project and then select Sequoia, go ahead and create, and then select a folder where to store the benchmark. And then it will create the benchmark, and you can now select one of the benchmarks you want to work with. In this case, we're going to select sys benchmark level 1 and then click on OK. Now, this is the complete sys benchmark level 1, and it contains all the settings that a device should comply with and have configured to be compliant with this benchmark. So if you select one of these settings, you can actually see what it does and what kind of configuration file is behind it. So this is very useful. And then if you click on create guidance, it will do the magic, and it will create all the scripts and mobile config files you can later on import to Intune, or maybe adjust them to your needs and then work with it. But what I'm also eager to show you is close how the audit mode works. So if I run this on my current device, why not? Let's run it and see how compliant I am with the sys benchmarks. It should only take a couple of minutes, so we still have time, right? It's pretty quick, actually. There we are, almost done. And that's it. So this result shows that I'm compliant for like 74, almost 75% with all the benchmark settings. And it will show which settings are compliant and which are not. So if you click on one of these settings, and it will show you all the information you need later on when you save it as a HTML file or a CSV file. But this is very useful if you're starting out. You should definitely check out Jamf Compliance Editor because it has a lot of features and it will make your life a lot easier. So obviously I am still using root sometimes, so I didn't disable that one. But I guess this gives a pretty good example of what it can do. Then what I also wanted to show was let's go to my test tenant and then go to custom attributes and then zoom in a bit. Hope it's readable on the other side. So what I did is I created a lot of scripts, of course, to comply with some of the settings, like disabling the HTTP server or the NFS server. Did you know that all Mac devices, Apple devices, come with a enabled HTTP server and NFS server? Yes, they do. So I'm not sure if it's pretty secure out of the box, but you should disable HTTP server, of course, for your users. That can be done using a script. And then if you go to custom attributes, you can create another script and actually see if the device has passed or failed this setting. So it's very useful. And you can also, like what I said, export all these settings to Log Analytics workspace and do your magic there. One thing I played around with was I was kind of interested in all apps using location services. So I created a script for that. And if I look at my device status, it will actually show which applications are using location services. So very interesting and useful information. But you can do a lot of things with this. And then iMazing Profile Editor. There it is. Like I said, there are a couple of configurations you can do with passwords. And here you can see I've used the declarative device management settings to configure all the password requirements I have. And this was the setting I was talking about, change at next auth. It should be disabled in your configuration. So make sure you really configure this one and set it to disable, because if you don't, users will have to change their password a lot more frequently than you'll want them to. And let's have a look at some of the preference files and custom configurations I have. For example, fast user disable listen for Siri uses a preference file. And what this means is it's actually a plist, and you can use iMazing Profile Editor to create the plist for you. But if you do, and you're using this particular setting, then you should strip the XML file from all the other things and only have the key and the value you want. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And there's also a custom configuration, and this one uses a mobile config file, which you can also create using iMazing Profile Editor if you want to, or go ahead and do it like by yourself, it has a lot more options configured, and you can use mobile config files to configure uh, many things at once. But that being said, I tend to segmentate things a lot because it's easier when you want to exclude some users or devices, for example, from one of the configurations you have. Let's go back to iMazing Profile Editor. So when you install it, it will show a lot of like options you can configure. And it will also show many applications which it has in its repository. And you can go ahead and configure all these applications, like the Brave browser, for example. If you add that payload, it will give you all the options you want to configure for your Brave browser. And if you want to combine this in one file, for example, you want to add the Firefox configuration too, you can go ahead and do that and configure the Firefox settings. But like I said, maybe some of the users need other settings for Firefox than other users. So I generally tend to like make a file for each setting I want to configure, but not for the browser itself, of course. But in this case, we're using two browsers, and I would generally configure a file for each of these browsers. And then that being said, you should definitely check out all the other options because it can help you configure like 802. It can help you configure your certificates. It can help you configure AirPrint or the App Store settings you want. Play around with it, get comfortable with it, and then go ahead and test it in one of your test environments or a pilot group. So the slides will be made available. The last slide I have was a slide with all the resources. So you'll be able to follow the links and go to all the tools and the recommendations I gave in this presentations. Thank you for joining. Christian, the floor is yours.
All right. I think I'll move on to thank you very much, Oktay, from our side, since Christian has to focus a little bit on everything with regards to the operations behind the scenes, that everything works fine. So thank you. I think I've learned really a lot of things. And for me, this is personally the real power of the community and those kind of meetups, like to learn things I would end up going through weeks, months, or years, getting everything on 45 minutes with all the resources. And thank you very much again. I hope you were able to change Ugur's mind. Not
We'll
sure.
see.
I guess we'll
I'll
find
talk to
out
her later on
later.
when everybody bombards him with questions.
Yeah, but that's really fun. So again, for everyone still in the call, don't hesitate to drop your questions. I think Oktay will stay with us a little bit here, and we'll be happy to answer them. Before I go to our next speaker, a short reminder to everyone who joined later, maybe, and not in the beginning. Today we're doing a raffle to give away one full event pass for the Workplace Ninja event this year in Switzerland. So make sure to drop your name down in the comments in case you want to participate. And stay here until the end. We'll do the raffle and we'll let you know who is the winner. And we'll let you know the details how to get your pass claimed. So again, drop your name in case you want to participate. And with that, I'm more than happy to hand over to Oh, Christian wants
Got
to
a
say something. I
question.
see.
Thanks,
Yeah, go
Oktay,
ahead.
for the session. I also learned a lot because
My
I'm
pleasure.
absolutely not
Sure.
into macOS security that deep. So thank you very much. You have a GitHub repo with your recommendations. How often do you update that? Do you have a cadence that's regular?
I try to follow the sys benchmark updates in this case.
Okay, perfect.
So when there's a sys benchmark update, I'll try to update it as soon as possible. It's been, I think, a month or so since the sys benchmarks have been updated. There are a couple of changes. I do need to update the sys repository on my GitHub, but I'm trying to stay ahead with that one too.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Oktay. Thanks for the question, Christian. Let's move on. Next speaker, Florian. More than happy to announce him since he is also one of my teammates here where we do work. So he is actually also a macOS fanboy. So I think we got all the people loving macOS and Apple hardware here. Florian, stage is yours. Move on, have fun.
Hope you guys can hear me. Okay, good. Didn't see it anymore, but I hope so. It looks good. So let me share the slides here. So I want to explain our best practices, or my best practices, about application packaging, deployment via Intune. So it's sometimes very easy to describe. Sometimes some of you will find some cool, interesting points. So I hope you like it. So real quick, the bullets, what we will cover. First one is how to deploy apps in a fully automated way, so without user interface or without user intervention, just like an app store experience for the end user. Second is a user-controlled app installation. Imagine the user has to put in some information while installing the app, or it's technically not possible to automate the setup. Then that's the way to go. Start the setup from company portal and let the user go through the setup process. Here I describe how we solved that. Third one, wrapping apps using App Deploy Toolkit. So we use App Deploy Toolkit. We hope to get rid of it as soon as Intune comes up with pre and post install actions or scripts. Or running app detection is also sometimes very helpful. Fourth one is the Intune Enterprise App Catalog, which is pretty new, and Microsoft advertising it a lot. So we use it and I love it. Fifth one is best practices for packaging. Just one slide or two with small bullets I came across when remembering about how to package, and 6 package catalog using Admin Studio's application catalog. So first one, overview about all possible ways to deploy apps with Intune on Windows. So first one, our favorite way, when the app is available in Enterprise App Catalog, go on and deploy it from there or add it from there. Next one, next in line, when it's not available in the Enterprise App Catalog, we look in Microsoft Store because Intune has a store integration from, or you can add apps from Microsoft Store to Intune and deploy it then from company portal, because most enterprises just lock down the consumer Microsoft Store, right? So yeah. Third one, Win32 apps. We cover that later on in more depth, how to do it, how to create it, but that's the way to go usually. Office and Edge can be added in a simple way directly in Intune and then installed from company portal. You just configure it, what components you want to have, how you want to configure it, and then when the user deploys it from company portal, it will be downloaded from the CDN. You don't have to mess around with installation sources, keeping that updated or whatever. Easy. Line of business apps. We don't use it as often because we use pre-provisioning as well, and you should not mix it with Win32 apps when you do pre-provisioning. And so you should not have Win32 apps and line of business apps in one enrollment status page or one pre-provisioning process, because they don't know each other very well, so they can conflict. And that's also best practice from Microsoft. Don't mix it. So we go with Win32 apps. Also, formats are pretty much limited with line of business apps, MSIs, FX. You know what I mean. Next one, Win32 app creation, how it goes. High level overview, I would say, but probably interesting for some of you guys. So the first one is make your package ready. So package the app, make sure it's installing without user intervention, because we want to create a fully automated application installer. So I created some videos here. We jumped through them, so don't be feared. It doesn't take too long. That's a app deploy toolkit wrapped package. So files are in files folder. Deploy application PS1 does have all the logic, and here in this deploy application PS1, you've got the pre-post actions. So at the top, you've got the name over here. Let's proceed here. We've got the pre-post install section, all PowerShell, and app deploy toolkit comes up with cool functions, making it easy to deploy MSIs, for example, because it waits for the MSI and also the sub-processes. The MSI executable or MSI has started, so it has a pretty cool logic, and that's the way how you test your app deploy toolkit wrapped application. So we just started the uninstall, and it will get removed in a few seconds, I think. Yeah, here it was removed. That was the longest video, I think. So next one, you've got your package ready. App deploy toolkit, all fine. You can start your app deploy application, install, silent, everything gets installed. What to do next? You wrap it using the Intune Win format, or into the Intune Win format, using the content prep tool. That's a small executable from Microsoft. It's required because Intune Win32 apps are required in this format. So you can only upload Intune Wins. And you create that. Zip archive is just a zip archive, compressed files in this special format, which are also encrypted. Oh, sorry, that's the last. That's the wrong one. You can upload that archive then to Intune, and I want to show you how to download it. It's on GitHub, and you just download that, extract the files. What you have then is an executable. You start that executable, and then you give the source folder where your package is located. You give the setup file, the main file you want to start, and the output folder. And then end result is an Intune Win file, what you can upload to Intune. So it's pretty easy, but you have to know it, right? So third one is to create the Intune app. In fact, it's similar in every deployment system. We got the chance to work with other systems as well, but Intune is our only solution right now, and we love that. So you can add the application, choose for your Intune Win file. You can only choose that file type. Write down all the metadata, add some images. That's a new one. You can select the architecture. The headline of that blade is requirement. So when user tries to install it on another witness, which you have not selected, he will see an error in company portal telling him requirements not fulfilled. You can add different ones, like disk space or whatever. In the end result, I want to just skip some stuff here. That's detection. You can select a registry key file or an MSI. When it's an MSI, you can go for the product code of the MSI. That's our favorite one. Here I just check for the registry key. I usually when we don't have an MSI, we go with with a registry key, and usually the uninstall string. Just add that. You can do a version comparison as well. So makes sense to do a greater than or equal to, especially when the app has an auto updater, what you probably want to use. You can add supersedence, so older applications you can uninstall automatically before that new app installs, and that's it. Here you can assign it. Let's stop here for a second. Required means it installs automatically. Available, it's available in company portal. The standard solution, I would say, an uninstall would be a required uninstall. And that's it for that one. And on the endpoint, after you have added it, assigned it, the user to whom it's assigned, he will see it in company portal. And it's processed locally from Win32 apps are processed locally from the Intune management extension, which is a pretty powerful tool, doing also a lot of other stuff on the endpoint. And yeah, user experience is pretty fine. It's just a fully automated app deployed through 1,000 different tools or software deployment systems on the world, but that was by Intune. How does the installation flow work? It's handled by the IME, Intune management extension, and what it does first the detection, checks whether it's installed. When it's already installed, it will stop here. When it's not installed and you want to install it, you just go. It will perform the installation, run the installation command line. Afterwards, runs again a detection, and depending on installation result or return code and the detection result, it will show a success or error message. As said, MSI, we go with the product code. That makes sense. That's very reliable, nice, cool to troubleshoot, very cool. But also file and reg keys can be used. Troubleshooting. On the endpoint, IME handles it. It has a log file, which is nicer to read in the meanwhile. It was placed in the IME log previously. Now it's in the app workload, log file. It's a rolling log, so the older ones have the date and the time in the file name. And as said, you can follow the whole structure of the installation. That's a good one, probably, for those who not heard it. Apps are referred with GUIDs by Intune, and you find the GUID in the URL. So if you want to search through the log, you just get the GUID here from the URL and copy paste and go through step by step. And you get a feeling when you had a look several times at it. As said, you see the detection. It does the applicability check. You see also the download happening. You see the install result, and also at the end then the detection again, and the show result as well. Just a small note, when you create a huge app, several gigs or whatever, it feels like it takes a bit longer until it's there when you're waiting for it, because application packager are pretty, yeah, they want to have it now when they assign it. But Intune doesn't think so sometimes. Usually you just restart the IME service. That's a Windows service. That's sometimes helpful. Just restart that and restart company portal. When it's an available deployment, what you usually use for tests, just do that. That increases or decreases the time, makes it faster, in fact, to see the app on company portal. Again, a small note, it's not too old, it's pretty new, I would say. There's a auto update checkbox. You only see it when you add when you add an old app to supersedence. So when you want to use supersedence to uninstall and then afterwards install the new version, only then you see the auto update checkbox here. And what it does, when you imagine you want to have your default way of deployment is company portal, but you still have already users with the old version installed, and your security team says you have to update those existing installations by a required deployment. That's all done by this checkbox and by the available deployment. So you just assign it as available, and the auto update checkbox does, and what it does is it just does a required deployment on those only with the older version, where the older version you selected in supersedence has been seen from Intune. So that's a pretty cool feature. We use that as well. How to handle user-controlled installations. Yeah, so in fact, there are 3 bullets to say when do you need user-controlled installations. In fact, when you can't package it because it's a bad setup, it can't be automated, or the user has to put in some data, configure something. Every user needs it in a different configuration. All that can happen. And also, you wanna, it's very less users. So for 1 or 2 users, we don't invest the time and create an automated package. So we call it semi-automated packages, which means, in fact, the user has the same structure of getting his apps. He orders it. After ordering, this user gets added to a group, and this group has the app assigned. So that's the same process for the semi-automated packages. So it can be ordered, but the only thing is it's not automated. So he goes to company portal, he launches, clicks install, and then he has to click through the setup. And you're very fast running into, when you try to do that, you're running into a small issue because you don't know the setup very well, right? When you don't automate it, you don't know it very well. And that's the issue here, because you never know the return codes exactly, what it can return, what it does, how reliable it is. So it can happen that it's returning 0 and it's not installed. So, and that can be an issue because as when you remember back, detection, install, detection. So when the user runs it, it's returning 0, but it sucks. It didn't get installed. So the installer is pretty. It's a bad installer. You've got the issue that the user is the branding, whatever you set or use for detection, has been set, right? But it's not installed. So the user he wanna try and install again from company portal, but the first detection will find your branding key, and what it does nothing. So the user isn't able to install it again. So we tried to find a solution for that. Plan B would be to use not a branding of yourself, what you create, a rec key or whatever. You could use files, but as said, files really installed, the main file, for example. But as said, we use it for 1 or 2 users. We don't want to invest the time to come on it. Let's install it. Let's check what we use as detection. Whatever. You know what I mean, I think. So all the packages will find it familiar. So we decided to run this setup, and at the end, as post install action, we write a scheduled task, and this scheduled task will remove the key what we use as branding every 5 minutes. So this scheduled task is it's just a one line or one code, one line of code PowerShell script which removes or two all 5 minutes the rec key what we use for all the semi-automated packages. So the end result is it's best if I show you in a video. For example, Visual Studio. You remember when you want to package that user. That's the example where the user has to select stuff while install. You wanna select the workloads you wanna install. You can't install the whole Visual Studio. It doesn't make sense. So semi-automated or user controlled installation makes sense here. So he clicks run, and in this section here, you see the rec key or the key hive where we write all the branding keys, what we use for detection then, right? And so let's skip a bit. As said, it's a scheduled task. I want to show that real quick. That's the setup where the user can select then the version, and then he can click through the setup, right? And the scheduled task is over here. So this scheduled task is getting created at every semi-automated package. It's part of the template. No packager has to care about that. And this scheduled task runs all 5 minutes and removes that branding key, which is only written after the user ended the setup, right? So that's the idea. You get the idea, I think. And yeah, what else did I do here? Yeah, just showing the detection, which is exactly this rec hive. So probably it's a cool idea, probably sometimes helpful for you guys, for one of you. So yeah, just probably a good idea, which works out very well for us. So I forgot one additional reason why you want to deploy all apps, also when it's only used by one user through Company Portal. We want to use app whitelisting pretty soon. Hope better sooner than later. And that's a feature called Managed Installer. Don't read that slide yet because you're distracted. So Managed Installer is a feature which is whitelisting all the files which are copied by the Managed Installer. And when you set Company Portal as your Managed Installer, all the files written by written by Company Portal are whitelisted automatically. So that's a cool thing because you don't have to worry when it's installed by my managed app store, which is Company Portal. I trust it usually, right? So then it's already whitelisted. Keyword is WDAC, Windows Defender Application Control. So we invest time right now to move to that. So that's another reason why you don't want to have your one user needing one application. Just tell him, okay, elevate it using EPM or whatever. Company Portal is the way to go. It should be for everybody, for all apps. Wrapping apps using PowerShell App Deploy Toolkit. I mean, probably you know all App Deploy Toolkit already, but quick summary: pre-install, post-install is possible. You've got predefined good functions to handle MSIs and stuff. It's an easy way to have a running app check. You've got a nice basic logging, and yeah, the process is add your install commands, sign the PowerShell script, best case, to apply with PowerShell execution policy if you have, and run the app using the deploy application. Good to know is when you want to install in system context and you want to show any UI to the end user, use service UI because it checks for the specified process. You specify that in the command line as you see here. That's your install command then. This executable checks for that process in which user context it's running, and then it forwards the result of that or the UI from this executable visible in the system context UI or system profile only. It forwards this to the current user profile. I hope I explained it correctly, but you know what I mean for sure. PS App Deploy Toolkit downloaded. Again, an overview about it. We jump through that very fast. Here we just have an example installation with the defer, or no, defer is disabled here in this dialog, but you can have a defer button as well. We don't like that, but sometimes you need it. So also a good overview if somebody haven't seen it yet. And that's the logging. What you have, that was too fast. It's in cWindows log software, and that's how it looks like. You see every step you do in the script. So it's a pretty good thing. Using apps using Intune Enterprise App Catalog. So what is it? It's you can have that's a list of pre-packaged applications directly in Intune, and you just can edit. They are pre-packaged from Microsoft, and yeah, you can just add it to your tenant and use it. Really quick overview how it looks to edit. So you just go to apps, create, go to Enterprise App Catalog, and then you go through the pretty easy workflow. You just select the app here, and everything is pre-configured. So you don't have to search for the parameters. There's unfortunately still no logo, but I hope they're working on that. Heard something. I mean, everything is pre-configured. You just click through, and that's it. Currently, it's not possible to supersede your own Win32 apps. So when you add a new Notepad++ from Enterprise App Catalog, you cannot select your Win32 apps in supersedence. So you cannot easily replace it from one app to another. But anyways, it's still very useful. We love it. So we just do new versions when it's available there. We just do new versions there and handle the uninstall probably save it by ourselves or just get rid by lifetime of the devices. Currently no auto update possible, but you've got a cool report showing you all your apps you added from Enterprise App Catalog, and then also let you know last available version. So you have a good comparison. What do you have, or what have you added, and what's available on the Enterprise App Catalog? And it's easy to go through and update the app. Best practice for packaging, just small bullets. So we use MSI as default. It's best in logging. It has very good standard error codes, and it's great to control and customize. Never modify a vendor MSI. You can build your own MSI if you have the tool. We use Install Shield. We can recommend that. That's a cool thing. I mean, they're very deep into MSI stuff and installers, creating installers. Probably market leaders. Yeah, but very good. When you want to modify a vendor MSI, use a transforms file. It's a second file. You can apply that to the main file when you run it, right? We use MSI upgrade table when we update older versions. You will see in a small video real soon. There's a logging possible by creating that reg key. Then you've got in the user temp directory who have run the app or installer. You will see a MSI log file, which is really massive and very good to troubleshoot. Yeah, and if it's not an MSI, start the executable. you all know probably, just to check temp directory whether it extracts an MSI, or try to unzip it, the executable, and try to get an MSI. That's the point. And if it's a different type of installer, try to find silent parameters. That's pretty clear, but very complicated sometimes, as we all know. Small overview about install shield. You see the metadata in the first page, product code, upgrade code, setup design. You have an overview about the features and components, which is, it's a database. MSIs are databases. So very helpful, very nicely made. That's the upgrade table I was talking about. We use 769 as attribute to migrate all the features. So it checks when an older version is detected, fulfilling this version range and language if you select it, and having that upgrade code for sure. So when this is fulfilled, it checks for the features of the older version, and it will migrate the features to the new version. So it will select and opt in for the same features, in fact. That's our default. If it's not working, we do different stuff, but usually that works and is very user-friendly, I would say. That's a property table, you know from Orca as well. So also that's possible. You've got all the standard properties there. Nicely made, nice UI. Last topic, package catalog or application catalog from Admin Studio. We use that, and it's also part of the Install Shield product family. The whole sense of it is to have one catalog where you have all your apps. If you don't have that, you have just files on your file share usually, and your apps in Intune, right? Best case, you do backups of your Intune configurations and applications and all stuff. But still, it's very nice to have one catalog available, where you can easily republish to your deployment system. You can also, from this catalog, you can test against operating system versions. So whenever you upgrade from Win 10 to 11, what you should have done, probably even earlier. But when you do that, or even feature updates, you can check from your whole application catalog in an automated way against ICE rules, installer rules, and also operating system versions. So we did that when we moved to Win 11, I think, and had an overview. It's a traffic light system where you can see, okay, that's fine, that application will work, that installer will work, the installed app will work. Cool. And in fact, that's how it looks like. I always feel it's nicer to see something, how it really looks like, and I hope you get a feeling for it. So you can add your applications here. We create folder for every application, and what you can do is you can wrap your application also using App Deploy Toolkit. So you just import the application, the vendor setup executable or MSI, whatever, right-click it, and then with one click you can wrap it to an App Deploy Toolkit. You can modify the template as well, so it's pretty massive and nice. And we can opt in to modify the file afterwards, the deploy application PS1 afterwards, so it will open. You can, and all the install, uninstall command line and metadata. I was lazy and didn't do it very nicely, but for that video, but you can, it just gets all the data from your catalog and creates you the script. Next, pretty cool thing, you can convert it to Intune Win, also in an automated way. You don't have to mess around with the Intune content prep tool. You can even bulk wrap or convert apps to App Deploy Toolkit, to Intune Win, to different formats. So it's super powerful. So it converts it, and in a second we will see here the Intune Win file. And what we can do in define land, right-click the Intune Win file. First, we have to add the detection. For MSIs, it does know the product code and adds it automatically. For VLC player, it didn't add that automatically. So I just create a file detection rule, and in a few seconds we will see the deployment process to Intune. That takes a few seconds, but then it just pushes it to Intune, which is cool. And here, in a few seconds later, I just renamed the bad name here, but that's that then. So that's pretty cool. We used Admin Studio as well to bulk. It was one part of the tool chain we used to bring all our apps, which are thousands, to not thousands, thousand, from SCCM to Intune. So here it was a lifesaver. It was really cool because it has a PowerShell API, and you can make use of it to bulk convert everything to Intune Win, or to grab everything from SCCM and convert it to Intune Win. And also upload it to Intune if you want to. So that's good. I think that's it. I hope you found something you like, and yeah, whenever you like to, just write me a mail, get in touch with me, LinkedIn, whatever. Thanks so much for having me. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much. And yeah, as said, hope you liked it. Bye-bye.
All right. Florian, thank you very much for taking time to deliver the session. Again, to everyone still in the call, make sure to drop your questions either in the chat, in the comments, or reach out to Florian directly. We'll make all the content of our speakers available afterwards. Again, to both Oktay and Florian, thanks for making time to the call today. That was pretty amazing. Great topics and great content. And then I think I will hand over to Christian to do the big thing for today at the end, to do the raffle and select the happy winner.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Florian, also for your session. Really interesting. And I'm so happy that you still use the PowerShell App Deployment Toolkit. It's really been a big part of my toolbox 10 years ago already, because it handles installations so well. So nice thing to see it's still very, very active. And I think it's also still actively developed, right? So
yeah, they
has a good support now.
Published version 4. The Patch My PC guys bought it.
Right.
So I showed version 3 because we didn't make up the time for version 4 yet, because they've got pretty massive changes, but that's
really?
on our roadmap. Yeah, it's modularized. It's cooler, but it's not just a easy switch. I feel.
Yeah. Okay. Understand. So everyone, last chance to throw in your name to the raffle to win the ticket for the Workplace Ninja Summit in Switzerland, taking place in September this year. 3 days of sessions, full with MVPs, Microsoft people. Normally, I don't know the schedule, I don't know the speakers, but based on the past, there will be people from the Microsoft product groups, I'm pretty sure. So now is your chance. Otherwise, we'll stay. So yeah, I think nobody else wanted to join in. Let's see if there's somebody on YouTube. No. Also, that's it. Okay, let's do it. Let's try if I can share my Wheel of Fortune. And let's see what is happening now. And I can't share at the moment. Perfect. Then you will have to trust me. I'm pretty sorry. That's too bad at the moment. But basically, we got 4 people who participate. So it's a very high chance of winning. It's Christoph, Andreas, Sven, and Robert. Good luck. We need the drum rolls now. I don't know who can play some drum rolls.
Florian is
I'm
a drummer, by the
spinning.
way.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That's true. Thank you, Roman.
So you have to create an intro for the next meetup, I think, with
Yeah,
your band.
I
Good
can.
idea.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm spinning the Wheel of Fortune, drum roll, and it is Christoph. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Christoph. Pretty cool.
Okay. So, Christoph, I think best way to get to the ticket is send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and then I can hand over to you the code. And then when you order the ticket, you can put in the coupon. And then, yeah, enjoy Workplace Ninja Summit. Great.
Great. I think
There
we
we are.
can close up this session and a meetup for today. Again, thanks to all the audience who joined us today. Again, thank you very much to our great presenters for today. And we all hope to see you again in the next meetup. We will make sure to announce it as soon as possible. So follow our page on LinkedIn to get updated in time, to know what's going on. We have some great content planned for the future as well. It was great to having you all. Take care, have a great time, and see you all next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.